It's Alteryx Weekly Challenge number 250, and I must admit I might have struggled a little bit with this one, just because it's quite a lot of logical steps that you need to kind of have thought of every eventuality, and I just didn't really have time to sit down and do it all in one go, so it's all a bit fragmented, and I definitely suggest checking out a more efficient solution. But I'll still talk you through what I did. So I've just got an initial text box here where you can type in your message. That's attached to a text interface tool so that you can just update that when you're running the app itself. And then we've got our tile inventory too. So I'll come back to the dealing with symbols. I'll kind of go through the main idea of the workflow first and then talk about those symbols that we use too. So with our message, then what I'm doing here is I'm just getting rid of those symbols if they exist. So that's kind of, I said I was going to ignore the symbols. Well, this is the part where I'm sort of saying, hey, replace anything that's got those square brackets with nothing. So if I just zoom in on that very quickly, the thing to remember here that tripped me up for a little while is remembering that you have to have the backslash in front of the square brackets for regex to pick that up, because otherwise the square brackets have another meaning in regex, because obviously you can have square brackets with like capital A to capital Z to mean all capital letters. So yeah, you need to remember those backslashes before those square brackets. So just definitely something worth pointing out there. So we're just ignoring all of those. We're sticking everything together. We're getting rid of all the white space so that we can just make it a row per character. So there we go. And then what we're doing is we're going to do a find and replace for those reversible tiles. So let's take a look at our tiles first of all. So for our tiles, we're just making sure that we rename, first of all, the quantity to number available, just so it's nice and consistent with what we want the output to look like. We check the length of our tiles so that we can filter out all those symbols for later. So this is where we're filtering those out. And then we're taking a look at those that are reversible or not. And those which are reversible, we're going to replace the tile with that reversible symbol in our input message. So you can see how our welcome gets replaced with an O or a 0. And we're just going to, for those reversible tiles, we're just going to sort of aggregate those up. And then we're just going to union them back together. So now we either have sort of, the 6 or the 9 or the O or the 0 together in one tile selection. There we have 40 records, for example, here now, whereas before we did that step, we had, if I click on the input anchor, that lets me 42. So we've just got rid of those 2 records. Awesome, lovely. So now we can do the same thing here where we're just aggregating up, counting how many times each letter or symbol appears. And then we're just going to join and work out the number needed versus the number available. And we're bringing back in our symbols at this point. Like I said, I'll go back and talk about the symbols in a minute. So we're looking at whether we've got any surpluses going on here. And in this case, we don't, but maybe it'd be more interesting if we did. So let's change our message to be something like peppermint, pink, pineapple. I think that is then too many peas. Oh yeah, definitely with the word pineapple in there actually. So now we come to here and we're checking our surpluses. Here we're checking our surpluses. We got a surplus of our P. So we do the max surplus and see. So if there is too many of a certain letter, then we get our output and we're just going to assign that with an error of 1. Otherwise, we would assign it with the message is valid and have an error of 0, so that we can just do a sort of maximum effect so that anytime it's an error, that is what is carried through. And we would get the following only coming through in our output. And with our output, we would just want to stick that to the original message, basically, create some text around that, and this would be sort of the message side of things that would be coming out. So let's just talk about the symbols for a second. So we're taking out anything that's within a symbol. So I'll just add in a symbol here. So I'm going to add in both cake and I'm going to spell it wrong now. I'm just going to put a C, for example. And now you'll see that we get our two symbols here, just using a bit of regex again with those backslashes before the square brackets. And we're just making sure that we're only keeping any non-null messages going through, cleaning up any spaces that might have accidentally come through and making it all lowercase in case somebody's typed it in capitals. And then we are doing that counting of how many we need of those tiles, aggregating it up, joining it to the symbols that we know of. And in this case, we get the C falling out because it is not a symbol. And therefore we would get an error message here for the symbol does not exist, and we get a 1 for the error too. So then you'd see at this point when it was coming through, we now have two errors actually. We've got symbol does not exist and you don't have enough tiles for this message. So then we just need our information, right, about which tiles we don't have enough of and which symbol does not exist. So we're basically coming out here and filtering out anything that's got a surplus of 1, and we're unioning it to what came out of our R output of our join for our symbols. So once we clean that up a little bit, then this is what we have here. And now we turn that into a table, union it together, and use the vertical layout tool to generate our report. So let's just click on that report so you can see it. So there we go, there's our message. Our symbol does not exist and I don't have enough tiles for this message. So there's my symbol, that's my tiles, and I have enough information about why it's not valid. So it does work as an app if I kind of do that. To show you that functionality too, I click on the little wizards wand. So I've got my what's the message. I've got an example there. Oh, okay, let's just go with that example. And I will run that there and press OK, and it opens up to say that the message is valid. So hopefully that was a useful walkthrough of my kind of logic. Hopefully you could adapt that with the logic that you're working with too. And don't worry if you're struggling a little bit, I found this challenge tricky too. Thanks for watching.